The way the game began today for the United States was pretty good, right? They came out blood and guts. They came out with a whole ton of energy. It was exactly what you would expect and want, and what you've seen already from them so far in this tournament, which is great. I know that Louis van Gaal did have a plan, and I think that was the one thing that a lot of people weren't so aware of is if the United States was going to be doing well and taking the game to the Dutch, did that mean that the Dutch were going to be struggling? In the first 8, 9 minutes, it really did look good for the United States. Christian Pulisic got a quite unbelievable chance, and I don't think he knew how good of a chance it was until it had passed him by. The ball got clipped into him, and he was kept onside, although he was trying to come back into an onside position. I don't think he realized that the outside back on the far side had kept him on. So he's through, tries to take a one-touch shot on goal, and puts it just too close to Noppert. Now, Noppert is 6'7", Andreas Noppert, the Dutch goalkeeper. He's big, but there's a lot of goal to aim at still, and there was a lot of time to really make a decision on how to finish the ball. It looked to me, as soon as he missed it, he looked over to the linesman and realized, "Oh, the flag didn't go up? I was onside?" There was a little bit of that kind of a realization for him. Now, look, comparing different players is not totally fair, but if you take a goal scorer in the mold of Cristiano Ronaldo, what he's gonna do is finish that first and then celebrate, and then it has to get called back and everything. But he's waiting until there's some kind of obvious denial of the goal. Until then, he's taking the chance because it's there. And to me, it just looked like Pulisic was maybe a little surprised to be in that position and that it seemed too good to be true. And so the finish was not with the same type of composure that you might expect from him if he knew he was going to score and knew he was onside. And as I said, the first 10 minutes went really well for the United States in most respects. The Dutch were not crossing the halfway line, but the first time they did, they scored. It was the first time they took a shot, first time they really got into the United States defensive third and ended up in a goal. So how did it start? Daley Blind on the far side of the field at left back has the ball, and at this point he's been getting scorched a couple times by Serginho Dest, who speed wise that matchup was always going to favor the United States. Daley Blind has the ball though in this scenario, finds Memphis Depay, who does a very good job to come into the play into the midfield from a forward role, keep the ball. This is something that Jesus Ferreira did not really offer the United States today, something that I don't think Josh Sargent did a very good job of against Iran. That is a key that has been lacking for the United States. A forward that can come into midfield and help connect the play. Depay does that, finds Coop Miners. He and Klaassen and Depay connect a few nice little one-touch passes. They find Cody Gakpo in the center circle. He turns and starts running. He drives and plays the ball in front of the path of Dumfries. Now, Dumfries is clever here to not the ball and start dribbling. Matter of fact, he allows the ball to sort of drift a little bit wide. He's running with it, has not taken a touch. And as he's doing this, he's allowing the rest of his teammates to join in the attack. Hits a beautiful ball in the cutback. Memphis Depay, who was let to run alone by Tyler Adams, comes into the top of the box and scores. Now, yes, Depay is a forward, so you would imagine, well, aren't the defenders supposed to be keeping an eye on him? But this is what happens when a forward drops into midfield to connect the play and then makes the run into the box. A midfielder has to track them because or else they're the ones facing goal and it's too easy for them to score. And the finish is excellent. One touch finish. This is the way the Dutch scored all three of their goals. One touch finishes, quality delivery into the box. That was something we saw again. So it's 1-0, right? The United States at this point, I think they looked all right. They were continuing to at least put the pressure on the Dutch. But at this point, the Dutch had a lead, and so they don't really need to come out. They can be very, very patient. They can allow the United States to come forward and basically say, break us down. Now, the United States were turning over balls in the midfield a little too often, and this was launching counterattacks. And this is where texting with people, I heard people saying like, "Oh, we need to switch this person for that person. What if we had this guy for that guy?" And it's very common for people to do this, to take a look at the personnel and say, if only those two people were changed, everything would be better. Everything would be different. I disagree. One of the main issues that I saw with the United States was that they were not really attacking the wide areas enough. And yes, Anthony Robinson and Serginho Dest were bombing forward, but Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah were not seeing enough of the ball in the sense that they were not drawing out the Dutch back line. Basically, they stayed high, and the Dutch had a good setup that cut them off. Not enough times did they come deeper to get the ball and then be able to turn and connect and go forward and combine. And that I thought it really stifled them in the first half. And it forced most of the possession to go through the midfield where the Dutch were basically just waiting. Every time they nicked it, they were dangerous. So you thought that's how they would score another goal. Turns out they scored in a completely different manner off of basically off of a throw-in poorly defended, right? This is right before halftime. So 1-0 going into the half for the United States wouldn't be the worst deficit. It really wouldn't. But 2-0 is difficult because now you've really got to come out with a plan to bring the game back as opposed to just keep things tight, keep doing what you're doing, look to see if you can get a chance. And then in the 75th minute, that's when you start to make alterations. And you can let the team know you're doing this at halftime and prepare. But at 2-0, you've got to go for it pretty much right away. It's a throw in for Dumfries on the right-hand side. He tosses it in. The ball gets sort of lost, and Jesus Ferreira is able to sort of nick it forward, but it goes straight to a Dutch player. They win it back, release Dumfries, and he crosses the ball one touch, or actually takes a couple touches, sorry, crosses the ball back, and Daley Blind is waiting at the back post, runs in, hits it right from the penalty spot with his right foot into the bottom corner. Serginho Dest left totally bamboozled, and it was clever by Daley Blind, who was just standing a little out of his eyesight, waiting. And when Serginho Dest took his eyes off him, Blind was able to make the run. I've seen this happen a few times this tournament where a defender will completely lose sight of the attacker and they score. Nicolas Sula for Germany did this with Alvaro Morata's goal, where he was running with him, looked very casual, got into a position where Morata was behind him and he couldn't see him. And then when the ball came in, he couldn't react quick enough. This exact same scenario here. And one of the things that I was worried about Dest going into the World Cup, but he really has shown well. I think this was his only real mistake, but you can see how costly it is against sides this good. And like I said, Dest had been giving Blind the runaround in that first half. And you really did feel like that was where the goals could come from, was attacking that side. And then to have Daley Blind go forward and score with his weak foot right in front of Serginho Dest is a little bit of like the veteran schooling the pupil. I mean, it was glaring, I would say, especially those two goals, the maturity of the Dutch side in different components to score it. There was a difference that you could see between them and the United States. We'll get to the third goal, but that one was, I think, the personification, the absolute best example of the difference between these two teams in certain situations. So the second half starts out, and Tim Ream got a really good chance, tries to get the knockdown from a corner kick, is able to get some level of control, but not enough to be able to poke it in the goal. Very decent opportunity, and the United States kept pushing. There was always going to be a risk that they would push too hard and end up getting hit on the break. That was always going to be a possibility. But they got an unbelievable chance. Haji Wright, who came on as a substitute for Jesus Ferreira, latches on to the only real mistake that Memphis Depay made all match. Memphis goes ahead and plays a blind pass back to his goalkeeper. Haji Wright reads it, and he's one-on-one against the goalkeeper. Now, his first touch has to be around the goalkeeper, the way it's going to work. Noppert came out quickly. All Haji Wright has to do is get a little feathered touch with the inside or outside of his foot, something that keeps the ball close to him so that in the next stride, he can shoot. Instead, his touch goes like 5 yards away from him, which takes him at a terrible angle and quite wide. His shot's actually really good, and it ends up on target. And if no one was there, it would have gone in. But the fact that his touch was so big, it gave Denzel Dumfries enough time to cover, and he blocked the ball on the line relatively easily, and it looked more like a squandered chance than a great defensive play, which that's exactly what it was. Noppert did a very good job in this game of coming out, cleaning up. He's looked pretty solid for a goalkeeper who did not have an appearance for the Dutch team until the World Cup. From what I understand, this is what a few commentators have said, and I think that's just incredible. This is the first time he's starting at a World Cup. I believe he's 39 years old. Yeah, it's something else. I'm not sure if actually that he is the one. No, it's Pasveer that's 39 years old. That's right. No. So, but Noppert is the tallest player at the World Cup. So we'll give him that as a good little title. Matt Turner was good himself. He was forced into some pretty good saves. One from Cody Gakpo, a shot from outside from Depay. He did well, but he couldn't do anything to stop the third goal. And very soon, the United States, even though they actually, sorry, I didn't get. I jumped the gun here. Haji Wright has to score before we get to the Dutch goal. So I say Haji Wright missed this massive opportunity, and he did. He scores one of the most freakish goals I think you'll see in quite some time. It's a corner kick for the United States. Pulisic is taking it, whips it in, ball gets cleared, comes back to him in the second phase, and he's able to drive into the box. Plays a hard ball on the ground, right across the face of goal. And Haji Wright seems to have gotten a little too far ahead of it and reaches his foot back just a little. And it hits basically the top of his toe or the top of his foot, deflects bizarrely about 8-9 feet in the air and loops. It's just a very strange situation. You won't see very many finishes like that. Totally accidental, but hey, it makes up for the miss he had a few minutes earlier. Now the US, they have their tails up. It's 2-1. This is the period of the game. You go for it. You try to get yourself level, and then you can take it to extra time, and really anything can happen from there. But the Dutch are class. And so this is one of the things that when I was talking to friends of mine, texting them throughout the game, one of the things that I said was, you have to think like the United States does not have a player of the caliber of Depay, right? We don't really have a guy that can calm situations down in the same way that Frankie de Jong can. And there is certainly no one as direct and powerful as Cody Gakpo is up top. Oh, and there's also Virgil van Dijk in the center defense. So we don't have those tools as the United States. Those don't exist in our in our really in our shed. And I forget the toolbox. The third goal was just a perfect example of the class that the Dutch have and it being used in different parts of the field, right? So first, they're able to diffuse an attack. Then as they get the ball forward, really good combination play to get from the midfield into the attacking third. And then the ball goes out to Depay, who he's in the box and he realizes he doesn't really have a route to goal. So he keeps the ball, chops it, draws 2 or 3 defenders to him. At this point, the United States is just funneling back because their press has been broken in the press got broken in the midfield. They're just trying to come back and make sure they don't concede. So everyone starts to come together. Now, Depay's on the ball. They're watching it. It goes to Frankie de Jong. He's able to just play a little clip ball out wide to Daley Blind. And at this point, if you look at the United States, every single player was inside the penalty area, but they were so scrunched together. And Denzel Dumfries is just sort of backing away at the back post, waving his arms like he's stranded on an island. He's trying to wave down a plane, and Blind just plays a perfect ball right over the top to him. Left-footed finish, left shin finish, maybe, I don't know, but either way, it's a good little one-touch volley goal, and that was it. That killed it. 3-1. There really was no chance from there. When you look at that goal, there just was a certain level of naivety. Also, it looked like just tired legs, tired minds. And the United States was taught a lesson today. There are a lot of tactical pieces that I think could have been different. Look, I think it's easy to be the Monday morning coach, or in this scenario, the Saturday evening coach. A lot of people are going to tell you and tell other people and talk about the fact that basically Greg Berhalter got it wrong. And I'm not sure he really did. I don't know how things would have been different with different players or a different setup. I thought the 4-4-2 they played against England was fantastic, but it also requires so much energy. And when you're playing teams that are clever and when they know how to break you down and they know how to use their moments to get the most out of it, well, that'll do it. That'll kill you. And so it was it ended 3-1. And look, the United States, like I've said, they really did make a good account of themselves in this tournament. This was not a given from the start. There were some people who were very optimistic, saying, "Oh, Wales, all we have to do is beat them because they only have Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey." That kind of turned out to be true, even though they didn't really have much of anything, Wales, except for that second half against the US in their first game. Iran, I don't think anyone really gave any credit to. People thought that that would be the easy game in the group. Turns out it was the only victory, but it was a very difficult one. And then I think a lot of people looked at England as probably going to lose, but you've got nothing to lose, so just go out and try and win it. And who knows, you might get a result. And they did. They got a draw. So in the end, the results are really not bad. To lose 3-1 to a team like the Netherlands. By the way, this is the Netherlands. This is not, uh, Poland that just beat you 3-1. This is the Netherlands. This is a top level side outside of the big teams that are really favored to win it. They're top of that next tier, right? They're in that group. So you can't take shame from this. But like if you think about it, when Greg Berhalter released his squad list for this World Cup, there were so many question marks about why he did what he did and why certain players were not involved that people hoped would be. And I think listening to the United States players at the end of this, what all of them who were interviewed said that was special about this time in Doha playing in this World Cup was the group. And that is not something to be sneered at. There are some teams here who the collective, the coach, whatever it was, there was disharmony. It did not work. Belgium is the best example. That's the one we really, truly know of. But then there were some other situations, right? Andre Onana from Cameroon, he got sent home apparently because he disagreed with the tactics that Rigobert Song, the coach, had. Apparently he wanted to play the ball short. Song wanted him to go long. Whatever you think about it, there was some kind of discord. He was sent home. But also, there were questions about whether or not the FA should have handled it differently. Like, should they have done something to avoid the drama? And the last thing you want is negative drama when you go to a World Cup. Every team that comes in with baggage does poorly. If they are united and together, they always have a great chance. And the United States, that's exactly what they've been in this tournament. They've looked completely united. I think we would have loved to see a few other players. I would have loved to see a little more Luca Della Torre. I think everyone would have clamored to see more Gio Reyna. We don't know about his fitness levels. I don't see why Greg Berhalter would have just kept him waiting in the wings, hoping to use him in some massive moment or that there was something actually wrong going on. I just don't think he's as fit as they would have liked him to be. But I don't know. We're that's just speculation. I just think that at this point, when you look back at where the United States was in the lead up to this tournament, there were questions about the whole front line, questions about the whole back line, not very many about the midfield, but those are a lot of questions. And then so to have a lot of them answered over the course of this competition with also different solutions. I don't think very many people thought of Cameron Carter-Vickers as being a really good option at center back. And when he started in the game against Iran, I mean, a lot of people were just kind of surprised. Like, oh my God, wow, he's getting his first start in this big game. They've dropped Zimmerman, but Zimmerman gave up a penalty, and no one questioned Tim Ream's involvement. Gotta love that. Even though he hadn't been in the side in over a year, and basically gets called up because he's had a fantastic season with Fulham and a few fantastic seasons with Fulham. Now that they're doing really well in the Premier League, it felt like kind of a no-brainer to bring him in. But then there was the question at center forward, and this remains a big question mark, no doubt about it. Jesus Ferreira started today against the Netherlands. Josh Sargent started against Iran. They went with the front two of Timothy Weah and Haji Wright against England. It has been a sort of difficult thing to find what is the best solution to find somebody who can play the job up there that we need them to play. There's different players that offer different things. There aren't seemingly any real specialists that have emerged yet. Ricardo Pepi is still young, but he had a super quick rise and then hit a wall like a lot of players do. I mean, most players, unless your name is Lionel Messi, you hit a wall at some point, you struggle for maybe a couple seasons, and you have to rebuild. I look at Jordan Pefok, a player who's done quite well for Union Berlin this season, but at the same time, is he really the answer that you need? I don't really know. Jordan Morris was there. He played in the first game as well. and came off the subs bench today. Look, I think there's a lot of there really is not much depth in the center forward position, but that doesn't mean it's the only way you can play. There are different ways to bring players in that can actually do a job for you. France won the World Cup in 2018 with Olivier Giroud up front. He didn't score a goal or have a single assist, but he was pivotal in the way the team worked around him. So, how does the US go from here? Well, first of all, I think this basis that they have is fantastic for 2026. If you think about the players that will absolutely be in the squad time, when you look at this current roster, it gets you pretty excited, right? Pulisic will still be around. He's still in his early 20s. Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Serginho Dest, Anthony Robinson, Timothy Weah. I mean, this is almost an entire starting lineup of players who will absolutely be back. Brendan Aronson, and then who are the other players? The ones that are maybe on the periphery now, didn't get called up, but players that will emerge as just more experienced professionals. Some may go to Europe. And who are the young kids that we just have not heard of yet that will come up in that time? 3.5 years is quite a while when you think about it. So I have to say I've been very impressed with the team this tournament. I think Greg Berhalter did a lot of gutsy things. Clearly, the way he has managed the squad and the player pool has worked. It doesn't sound like there are difficult relationships, and it does sound like things have gone the way he hoped culture a little bit. And the idea for this team, they've said it multiple, they wanted to change the way the world perceived American soccer players, right? We had fans out there hilariously chanting, "It's called soccer." And here's the thing, you need an identity as a nation. So if we're going to be the spoiler of the beautiful game in a way, we've got to have the players to do it, and we've got to have the mentality to do it. What I've said all along in terms of the culture and identity aspect is, what is America, right? What is the embodiment of the spirit of this country? Look, every single country, every single nation has their own sort of highfalutin ways of thinking about themselves. Hard work pretty much is dangles with everybody. But in the United States, the idea that you can go from absolutely nothing to the absolute top, and I mean not just happy, not just a little bit wealthy, but full-blown worldwide famous, king of the world. The idea that you can do that in America is always in the back of people's minds. There's just always this idea that you could make it big. You could strike gold in some way if you do the right things. Now, the people who work hard, have a good ethic, good core values, they can really make it. And they've got to be gritty. They've got to be opportunistic. They've got to want to take risks at a time. But they've got to have self-belief in what they're doing from the very beginning that is unshakable. No matter what, I will try my best and I will achieve something. And I'm going for that. That's the American dream. Like, if you ask people from all over the place, that's the American dream. And I think the United States played with that essence this tournament. In the end, they were outclassed by a really good coach and some top quality players in that Dutch side. But it was a very good show. I think it's also been interesting already listening to a couple podcasts of people going over the game and realizing how disappointed they are, mostly because of how much they built this up as a possibility that they would go through. Yes, it was always a possibility, but once the Dutch scored the first goal, there was a massive reality check. And I think a lot of people over the next couple of days are going to struggle to really put that into a scope that makes sense for them. This has been a great World Cup so far. The Dutch will face Argentina next, let's spend a minute on Argentina, actually. Let's do that. Argentina against Australia. This was, one of those absolutely massive differences in world rankings, in class on the field, and quality and everything, right? But, the one thing that Australia have built up for themselves is a pretty good belief that they can pull something off, because they got out of a group with France, Denmark, and Tunisia that no one expected them to get 6 points out of. I mean, they were thrashed by France on the opening day. They did score first in that game. They just woke France up, and then Mbappe, and the rest of the clan took over. But Australia then beat Tunisia, and then they beat Denmark and get to the round of 16, and they have a chance to pull off probably the most unpopular upset ever, because there's so many people who want Lionel Messi to win the World Cup, that if Australia were the team to get in their way, I think that would have left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. People want to see Messi go a long way. So I think a lot of people were excited. Oh, good, it's Australia. It's just Australia. But Australia put up a good fight today. They really did. Almost equalize the game in the very, very last moments, which would have probably been unfair on Argentina, considering the display that they did put up. So starting from the beginning of the game, what was really interesting was the way that Australia grew from each 10-minute block. So they started deep, low block, just try and force Argentina sideways, just try and, don't let them have balls over the top that are easy. And Argentina were also being cautious. They weren't sending people bombing forward. They weren't dribbling the ball too much. They were just trying to keep a rhythm and keep possession. So it's very similar to the way you see Spain play against teams. But after about 15, 20 minutes, first of all, Messi was practically anonymous. He was walking around everywhere. He looked exhausted and he looked a little frustrated. And it kind of looked in a lot of ways like they were playing 10 against 11, like Argentina 11, because Messi wasn't doing much of anything. The problem is when he's there, obviously you can't take your eyes off him. You never know how it's going to pan out. Just ask Mexico, right? They took their eyes off Messi for just a few seconds and he ends up at the top of the box, scores, and then that was the end of that game pretty much. So Messi you can see him starting to get frustrated and he just looks tired, right? And at one point, he goes and he challenges one of the Australian players out towards the sideline, hunts him down, presses him, is able to actually forces him out of bounds, wins the ball, gets his shirt pulled. There's a little bit of talk going on. And then throw in comes in, and the Australians foul, I think it was Julian Alvarez in the corner. And this was a big moment because a few minutes prior, I just been thinking to myself, how's Argentina going to score with this like super low block? Like they might be able to find a way through. There might be just one of those normal goals where it just kind of comes out of nowhere, right? There's just a player that makes a difference or someone makes a mistake. That was what I had in mind. But I also was like, it could be a set piece, but worse yet, a second phase of a set piece, right? Where Australia no longer have that perfect organization that you would see on the field, where it's all these nice triangles and lines, and everything looks great in the way they're pressing space and containing it, and the distance between each other's perfect. But a set piece changes that for you, right? When you have to defend a corner kick, you have to mark up. You're all scrunched together in the box. Once the ball comes out, what do? You don't want to just run and spread out again. You still have to worry about the ball coming back in. So at that moment, people tend to be a little bit disorganized. And that's basically what happened. Ball goes in for Messi, gets headed out, right back to him. He brings it down, plays the ball at the top of the box, follows it in. Ball comes into Otamendi, who's taking a pretty decent touch to set himself up to shoot, but Messi's running in and just takes the ball off his foot, slots it in, 1-0. And this breakthrough, I mean, you could just feel that this was a moment for Argentina where now they can relax a little bit. Now they can just play, and they know that Australia are going to have to do something eventually. The funny thing about Australia is they don't need to care if they're down 1-0. They just need to convert one chance. As long as it's 1-0, they just need one chance, and they can take the game to extra time and bunker down and take it to penalties and bring on Nathan Redmayne. Yes, that bearded goalie that does the crazy dance on the goal line. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. Nathan Redmayne, goalkeeper. Check it out. So that's kind of where you were like, oh gosh, if this game goes there, that could be a problem for Argentina. The weird thing about Argentina right now is the level of pressure that they're feeling in every game. It's unbelievable. I mean, Messi missed a penalty kick against Poland, and within seconds, the whole crowd is chanting Messi, Messi. I mean, that they are so behind him. They are unshakably going to support this team. The Argentinians are dominating the stadiums. I mean, you can hear them singing the whole time. The whole time. It sounds like they're in La Bombonera in Buenos Aires, like Estadio Nacional. I mean, it is unbelievable. But the pressure on the players is huge, and you can see it. And I mean, the relief in when they score goals, it's like it just reminds me of Brazil in 2014 when they were playing at home and they just they didn't have the best side. I think Scolari was coaching, and it didn't look good. And they eked through pretty much every game and got lucky in pretty much every game. And then in the semifinal, it just all fell apart all at once, and they lose 7-1 to Germany. I'm not saying that anyone's going to beat Argentina 7-1 in this tournament, but the way it collapsed for Brazil, it was like all this pressure had built up and it finally just had to escape. Look, if you can get over the edge in the final in that scenario, then all is forgotten. But this looks really difficult. It looks like a massive labor of love for Argentina. Love for Messi, love for the legacy. They want to win a World Cup for themselves, yes, for the country, for this team, but to do it for Messi is such a big part of what is going on around this. And that's just an extra added layer of pressure. Now, it's good for the players on the field for them to stay motivated at all times. And today we did see some good performances. One of the most disappointing players for me from Argentina in their first two games was Rodrigo de Paul. I thought he was slow and poor against Saudi Arabia. I thought he was not much better against Mexico, although he did fight harder, but he was turning the ball over like crazy. Improved performance against Poland, yes, but today I thought he was very good, and he was a driving force, but also he took a lot off of Messi's plate. Like, there were times where he was like, "No, I'll just drive with the ball," or times where when he had it and Messi wasn't really all that open or had two people on him and Messi's asking for the ball, he says, I'll slow it down. I'll move it around. We can take our time." That bit of maturity is going to be huge for Argentina going forward. And when they play against the Dutch, I mean, God, this is going to be a great game. This is going to be an absolute belter, I think. And the pressure will be sky high. So, look, the Dutch won't care. They're going to go in and be like, well, we've got no reason not to believe we can beat Argentina. And at this point, after Saudi Arabia did, anyone can feel like they can. And the results in this World Cup on you first of all, you cannot count teams out, because though our 2-1 up and looked like they were doing fine, or 2-0 up and looked like they were the Australian defender, what was his name again? I want to say McGill. Anyway, guy takes a shot. Edson Fernandez jumps in front of it. It gets blocked and does a wild deflection, goes into the far side of the goal. It ends up going down as an own goal. And now it's 2-1. And so anything can happen at this point. Any big ball into the box can turn into a knockdown. A flailing arm turns into a penalty. Anything like this, and it's 2-2. Now, Argentina kept playing. They didn't just like slow down and bunker down and say, all right, we'll just survive and beat you on the counterattack. They were actually nicking balls in the midfield and counterattacking, and they were getting great chances. Lautaro Martinez missed two just glaring opportunities. He was set up by Messi twice, misses them both. Messi tried to take his own opportunity, missed the upper corner by a tiny margin, had a couple shots blocked. That one where the goalkeeper parried it and he was running in to rebound it, but it hit him and went out. He couldn't quite adjust his body. And any of these would have made it 3-1 and the game's over. And then literally in the last minute of the game, ball gets sent in by Australia. They're doing the long ball thing at this point. Big cross in. And Corral on the backside of the box brings it down, is able to turn, and Emi Martinez comes out and makes an incredible save. I mean, it's a huge save, because if this game goes to 2-2, I just don't know. I just don't know how Argentina deal with it. At this point, Messi and all of them looked exhausted. I mean, DePaul was grabbing his shorts. He was on his, putting his hands on his knees. They needed the final whistle. Now, like I said, I don't know how many games in a row you can do that. If you're taking the distance against the Netherlands, how are you going to handle it? And every game has been such a big expense of energy physically, but also emotionally for Argentina. And look, I hope they can get over the line, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's going to be so interesting. Tomorrow, France play against Poland in their knockout game. We will have England against Senegal. We will have Brazil against South Korea, I believe. I'm not going to get through the rest of them, but this knockout round should be a lot of fun. And then after the round of 16, we will have our first single day break of the tournament. I mean, this is incredible. It has been an onslaught, but it has been a fantastic tournament. So for anyone still wondering, hey, is the World Cup really worth it? Yes, it is probably the most fun thing that happens. If you follow it and follow it closely, you will be roped in. It is, there are so many good games, so many good storylines, and so much to take away from it. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. Just wanted to remind everybody, if you're listening, check out my Instagram, check out my YouTube page, Campfire Football. I've been posting a ton of 1 minute long videos. I'm actually up to about 30 of them now, just breaking down individual games, the groups, the happenings, the daily things that are going on. And it's been a lot of fun to do, but it means that I'm not recording just basic podcasts anymore. And also, I have just done my first ever live stream on YouTube with this specific episode. So I'm going to hit end stream in a second. We're going to cut this recording. I'm going to do a little editing for the podcast so you guys don't have to listen to my mess ups and the parts where I'm reaching for information. If you want to see the raw footage, it should be on YouTube as long as everything goes through smoothly. Okay. All right. Vive la France. That's tomorrow. Wish you all a lovely weekend and enjoy the rest of this World Cup because it will be over before you know it. There are not many games left and teams are dropping like flies. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'm Sebastian North. This is Campfire Football. Adios.